morning. I hate to interrupt all the chatter, but I'm loving it. Thank you all for coming, bringing your energy, talking to one another, people you know, and maybe some new people you're meeting. My name is Cindy Guerrieri. I'm the Director of Social Services for the town of Enfield and a member of the Enfield Together Mental Health and Wellness Coalition. Nice to see you all. We're coming together for the kickoff of our campaign, Enfield Connects. If people want to grab some items on their way out the door, we've got buttons and stickers. We're going to use all of you shamelessly to plug the campaign. Some of you were here with us last year when we shared our plan for improving the quality of life of Enfield residents, and you helped ETC prioritize what you felt was most pressing, the issue of loneliness and isolation. ETC got to work and moved from concept to launch of this next year's worth of work. We understood that the antidote to loneliness was social connection. I'd like to take just a minute to recognize, and people, if you can just raise your hand if I say your name, the tri-chairs of ETC, Kelly Fisher, Charlotte Riley, Aaron Markovich. Nice. Our other leadership work group members, Bizrat Tabebe, Alice Egan, I know she's actually, I think, in Florida. Lee Gallivan Mahoney, great. Melissa Howe, Steve Kozlauskas, Edna Rodriguez, Tim St. James, Patrice Solik, Jennifer Wheeler. Rounding out the leadership work group are our youth representatives, Cam Valley and Braden Sakala. And in case you're wondering, yes, we got permission for them to be here this morning. All right. To pull this together, we had a task force. That's how ETC works. We get people together to work on projects so that you're not committing to life doing something. Mike Arnone sends his regrets. He was this morning not feeling well. Kelly Fisher served on the task force. Joanna Fornwalt, Ari Green, Melissa Howe, Lainey LeBrun, Maya Matthews, I didn't see Maya, Jennifer Ryan, the picture taker in the back, Rosalind Swift, hand up, and Melissa Trepaz. Thank you. And I couldn't say enough about our prevention coordinator, Tessa Rydell, who did a ton of the behind-the-scenes planning. And I'd like to thank our master planner, Carissa Cunningham. Thanks, Carissa. All right. And back by popular demand, Raheem Nelson, our graphic recorder. You may have noticed when you first walked in, there were slides moving around a pictorial display of Enfield and words. Those were the words spoken at last year's event. So Raheem is back, and he's going to be capturing pictorially what happens here today. So thank you for coming back. Okay, loneliness is not just a feeling. It can take a serious toll on health. Research shows that being socially disconnected increases the risk of heart disease, stroke, dementia, depression, and premature death, at levels comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Isolation is more harmful than obesity or physical inactivity. On the flip side, so we're not going to linger there, having strong social ties boosts resilience, lowers stress, and enhances our sense of purpose. This campaign is about more than programs. It's about culture. It's about sending the message that no one has to navigate life alone. Whether you've lived in town all your life or just moved in, whether you're young, old, or somewhere in between, there's a place for you here. You can find it at your own pace. So ETC, today we collectively commit to equipping you with the knowledge and tools needed on this journey. We commit to raising awareness, building partnerships, and addressing root causes. And we commit to making connections with you here now and with those we may not have met yet. I'd like to invite Mayor Nelson up to share a few words.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me this morning. I also want to recognize and thank Representative Hall and our Town Council and Board Education members who are with us this morning supporting this campaign. Today, I join ETC Mental Health and Wellness Coalition in this campaign launch, which will help our residents connect with one another. Having previously served as an ETC Tri-Chair, I can personally speak of the great work being done by this dedicated group to promote wellness and prevent misuse of substance. So what is Enfield Connects? It's a simple idea with a big heart. It's about reminding ourselves that connections matter, saying hello, checking in on someone, sharing a laugh. These small moments build the kind of community we all want to live in, helping make Enfield a place where no one feels alone. Enfield Connects is exactly what we need at the right time. Loneliness is more than an individual struggle. It is a public health challenge that touches many families, workplaces, and entire communities nationwide. It can be easy to feel isolated even in our busy town. But we have seen what happens when people reach out, when neighbors look out for one another, when local groups and businesses bring people together. That's when Enfield is strongest. Enfield Connects celebrates that spirit that helps it grow. It's about making sure everyone here feels they belong across neighborhoods, ages, and backgrounds. Our town may be the first in Connecticut to embark on a municipal-backed town-wide campaign dedicated to strengthening the ties that bind us together. This initiative responds to a very local need. Through surveys, Enfield Together Coalition learned that not only do some of our older residents feel isolated, but nearly 4 in 10 of our middle and high school students say they feel lonely. 16% of our adults report struggling with anxiety, and 11% with depression often feel lack of connection. The good news is we have strengths to build on, such as more than 80% of the survey respondents say they trust their neighbors, and we have critical buy-in from our schools, businesses, nonprofits, healthcare providers, and faith communities. This civic spirit is exactly what connects, what Enfield Connects seeks to grow, one person at a time. I leave you with words of congratulation and encouragement from Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysiewicz. When communities operate in harmony, it can be transformative. Congratulations and thank you to the leaders of Enfield Connects for establishing this community-based organization to promote municipal social cohesion and development. This organization is a wonderful response to the impacts social isolation has on physical and mental health, and as a result, will strengthen ties between the town and its residents. This type of work is certainly not easy, but is essential in promoting the well-being of members within the community. Thank you for your dedication to improving the lives of those around you and going the extra mile to make a difference. This project will benefit the community for years to come, and we look forward to seeing all that it will accomplish. I just have to say, the Enfield Together Coalition is very close to my heart. They're addressing a lot of things that have happened throughout my life. And if we could just save one person, it's worth everything. And I truly appreciate everything that all of you have done, and the time and the commitment. I personally know the commitment, and it was very hard for me to serve as a tri-chair because it's so near and dear to my heart. So again, thank you everyone for doing a great job. And you know, this is to save people's lives. So thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mayor Nelson. Now we're going to hear from some humans, as we like to call them, humans of Enfield. We will be spotlighting humans throughout the year. Today we have a few that are willing to kick us off and talk to us a little bit about how they connect, what they like in Enfield. We have 3 folks that were willing: Lauren Urena, Cam Valley, and Joanna Fornwalt. Lauren, I really apologize. Come on up.
Good morning, everyone. Is this high enough? I was asked here today to speak about connection because some of the organizers know that I'm obsessed with Enfield's playgroups. When our first son was born 4 years ago, we hadn't discovered playgroup yet. When he came home after 20 days in the NICU, we were so in love with our new baby. I also struggled deeply with postpartum depression, having to leave our baby behind at the hospital 20 times in a row. Sorry, guys. Crushed a piece of my heart. We also learned some things about parenthood that they don't prepare you for. Maternity leave can be lonely. I didn't often feel comfortable leaving the house with a teeny baby, and I lost the connections from going to work every day. Many of our friends were at different phases of their lives. Yes, we do have the most wonderful families in the world, and we were so grateful for their support, but there was still a level of connection that was missing. Fast forward 13 months, and we welcomed our second child, perfect in every way, but born even earlier. He spent 42 days in the NICU, which was a dark time for me. It was a constant feeling of guilt to leave one baby to see the other, and then leave one behind again. Very soon after Javi came home, I saw someone post about Enfield's playgroups, and I decided to try it out. Marco was old enough that he was ready to socialize, and it seemed like a good idea for my sanity to leave the house. It turned out to be the best idea I've ever had. Leaving the house with an infant and a 1-year-old, who couldn't walk yet at the time, was not an easy task. But playgroup gave us a safe space to go. I walked in with such a teeny baby on my chest that everyone thought the baby carrier was empty, and a toddler on the other arm. I instantly felt welcomed by Miss Erin, and Marco was so excited to have a new place to play. We met other parents and had a safe space to explore. When everything fell apart, and sometimes it did with 2 babies, there was always someone there to help and no one there to judge. Our whole family quickly grew to love playgroup, and we attended every single week for the next 3.5 years. We still sneak in whenever we can for events and evening playgroups when we get the chance. Our connections of playgroup have grown way beyond the actual playgroup. Miss Erin introduced us to some of the members of KITE, who invited us to their community conversations, and we have met, honestly, so many people in this room that started through playgroup. So now, as we get ready to welcome our 3rd child, this time I'm so much more prepared. We will be signing up for playgroup as soon as we can, because it has truly been one of my favorite parts of parenthood. The end. And just an important side note, if any of you know my children They don't know for the next 7 days, so don't ask them about being big brothers. We're telling them on Halloween.
Make sure this is good to go. All right. Good morning, everyone. Hi. I'm Camden Valley. I'm a senior at Enfield High School, and today I'm here to talk about a connection that I found in my daily life. So in my freshman year of high school, I started off playing soccer, and well, I didn't play a ton, but it was fun. I had a good time because I played soccer in the previous years and everything like that. So I've been playing for probably 5 or 6 years at this point. It just wasn't cutting it. I wasn't feeling like I was making the connection I wanted to with the players. It felt like it was stressing me out in school and everything. So I decided, I'm just gonna stop playing for now. But then I felt like I lost some of the connections that I made. Some of my friends were in soccer and I was having to leave them behind. So I was just thinking about, how can I find a different way to connect with people? So I always liked, when I was a kid, I would make stupid little movies with my brothers and stuff and editing videos online, but how could I make that into a connection? So I started taking digital design classes in freshman and sophomore year, which allowed me to develop some Photoshop skills, things like that. So I reached out to a couple of soccer players in my school, on my team, my friends, and I was like, hey, I just noticed you guys didn't have a ton of a social media presence. How can I help you create that? So I started designing and creating graphics, game day posts, wins, losses, things like that for them. And this opened up a huge opportunity for me in more connections as well. I can help. I've helped the soccer team, the Enfield High football team, and a couple other people committing to college and graphics like that. And I found overall that this was a great way to connect with people after, that rocky soccer start, but figured out a way to turn it to a positive thing and find a lot of connections with other people. Thank you, guys.
Morning. I'm Joanna Fornwalt. I'm going to apologize in advance. This clock dated about 5 minutes, I'm sorry, Cindy, last night. And we're going to start with some history, but hang in there with me. So I just wanted to start by acknowledging that the lands that we're meeting on today are the ancestral home of the Pecumtuck, who established the villages of Namaroke and Skiddaco in what is now Enfield. And I think Indigenous people across the globe intuitively knew what we now have come to understand through data, which is that community and connection to each other, the land, resources, are vital to our survival and well-being. My Enfield connection story starts with the immigration of both sets of my paternal great-grandparents coming to Enfield through Ellis Island from Italy. That's why I'm talking so fast and with my hands. In the early 1910s, they found jobs at the Bigelow Sanford Carpet Company. They found housing in Thompsonville, had 3 children, and sent them to Enfield schools. My father went to middle school in this very building and graduated, he just corrected me, in 1974 from Enfield High School. He has many stories of connection in Enfield, from skating on Freshwater Pond with friends, to movies at the Strand with his family, to horsing around in his woodshop class with his best friend Scott Wing. My grandparents lived in Enfield on Spear Avenue. My grandfather was a door-to-door Prince Spaghetti salesman, which perfectly suited his gregarious personality and likely made him both many connections and many sales. My great-aunt Jo lived 2 streets over on Hathaway Ave until her death 3 years ago at the age of 101. She lived here in Enfield for 101 years. She always said that Enfield had everything she needed and she never wanted to leave her home, and she never did. She loved her friends and neighbors and counted them as her blessings. As I reflected on my connections with Enfield, I realized that I've become my Aunt Jo. We bought our first home in Enfield 16 years ago thinking that it would be a starter home and that we'd only be here for about 5 years. And as the years went on, it became harder and harder to contemplate leaving. Everything that we need or want to do is within close proximity to our neighborhood, and our neighborhood connections have grown. I grew up in East Windsor, and my neighbors were cows. So I watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood when I was a kid, and I just really wanted a neighborhood like his. One where I could pop over to a neighbor's house to play, or walk down the street to the library. And it's gotten harder and harder to think about leaving Enfield, because that's what we have now in our neighborhood, with our 2 young children who are 4 and 7, where they're getting that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood type childhood. One of the characters in our neighborhood story was Dave, the first neighbor to befriend us when we moved in 23-year-olds. That first winter in our home was the one where it snowed, a foot of snow every week for like 6 weeks, and we only owned shovels. And so we were like physically struggling to heave the snow from our driveway over the 4-foot banks at that point. And then the plow comes in at the end and just plows you right back in, and the guy just looks at you and you're like, hey, what happened? And it's awful at the end there. So Dave came over and he snowblowed the bottom of our driveway for us, and I cannot tell you the relief that we felt. I have to confess, he was probably in his late 60s or early 70s at that point. We really should have been helping him, but it was a kind thing that he did. Another character is our 81-year-old next-door neighbor, Cheryl, whom my 2 girls have developed a lovely friendship with over the course of the last year. Whenever either one of them is outside and the other notices, they call to each other. And they'll meet at the fence and they play these games. My girls especially love launching every toy that they own over into her yard. And she actually enjoys throwing them back, which, this could go on for 30 minutes. And that's like a real slice of heaven. If you're a parent, you know that 30 minutes that somebody's entertaining your child is fantastic. But it's also one of the joys of parenting to see other people delight in your children, especially your neighbors. We've also developed a connection with our young neighbor CJ, who we met when he was a 6th grader during the pandemic. My oldest daughter was 19 months old when everything shut down, and I think like many parents, one of my primary concerns was, how is this going to impact her social development when we were literally not going anywhere or seeing anybody? The only time we got out of the house was on our neighborhood walks, and sometimes these walks happened 3 times a day, because again, we weren't doing anything else. We encountered this boy, and he would stop, and he would wave, and he would smile, he'd say hello, he'd compliment something about my daughter, and she was absolutely captivated by him. We got to know him more, know his name was CJ, know which house he lived in, some of the things he likes. And that kind of interaction meant everything to me, because it was literally the only social connection that my daughter had with another young person at that time in her life due to the pandemic. And to this day, even though he's in 10th grade, he always stops to chat with real interest and enthusiasm with my 2 girls. The last connection that I'll share was highlighted when my neighborhood had our first block party this summer, which was organized organically by a group of neighbors. I was so excited to get the invitation because I've seen a lot of my neighbors and I've talked to a lot of my neighbors, but I don't even know some of their names, like the guy with the truck, the person with the dog, right? So it was so much fun. We had a fantastic time, and one of the highlights for me was that someone thought to invite John the mailman, and that he came. And John the mailman showed up at this block party, and it was like Cheers, right? Everybody knows John the mailman. And instead of his mailbag, he had a cooler of beer on his hip. But it was so special to see that even though he does not live in our neighborhood, he is a part of the fabric of our neighborhood. So Enfield has been a fantastic community to live, work, and raise children in. I know we'll be getting a call to action from Deb, but I hope that what I shared highlights that any small action, a wave, a smile, a few words in passing can create connection, and you never truly know the impact that a small action might have on someone or how much they might have needed that wave or that smile, and I think that that's what Enfield Connects is all about.
Thank you to all of our humans from Enfield for sharing. My name is Tessa Rydell, for those of you who I don't know. So I hope you're all enjoying your morning so far. I'm really excited to introduce our keynote speaker, Deb Bibbins, who is the founder of For All Ages. For All Ages is a nonprofit that aims to end loneliness, reduce ageism, and promote kindness across generations. Deb's passion for combating isolation and loneliness led her to start a statewide alliance, Connecticut Collaborative to End Loneliness. Connecticut Collaborative to End Loneliness was created to tackle the public health crisis of loneliness, because Deb truly understands that social connection is the foundation to wellness. In a few moments, she'll share a little bit about the profound ways that loneliness can impact not only individuals' physical and mental health, but entire communities. That knowledge led to the creation of intergenerational programs like Tea at 3, the Fishing Derby, and Together We Rock. Deb was here with us last year. We determined that social connection should be ETC's first area of focus, and we are so happy that she is here with us again to see what the coalition has accomplished. And we're even more grateful to just generally have her support in the work that we're doing. So please join me in welcoming Deb Bibbins.
Good morning, everyone. Louder. Good morning. All right. So before I begin, I just want to really thank Lauren and Cam and Joanna, because what they did this morning, thank you, Tessa, was to share a bit of themselves, right? You said the humans of Enfield. We are all human, and we all have these feelings from time to time about not belonging. It can grow into something very chronic. And I just think that when people have the ability and the courage to stand up and share their story, it makes it real for every one of us. So please give them another round of applause. So it is truly an honor to be here with you today. And I am joined by my colleague, Gary Sikorsky. He's sitting over here. Gary and I co-founded For All Ages back in 2019, about 10 months before the pandemic, recognizing the need to address loneliness and social disconnection. Since we launched the organization, our programs and our social health education has now touched the lives of 40,000 people. And so I share that not to pat ourselves on the back, but to tell you that this works and you will have an impact. And as you go on, there will be ripple effects that you can't even think about today, and they will evolve and they will show themselves, and it's going to be beautiful. So I am thrilled to be here today as the Enfield Together Coalition kicks off this social connection campaign. You are doing something truly remarkable, really powerful. We've already heard, and I was going to say this, but we've already heard that we believe that Enfield is the first town, the first municipality in the state of Connecticut to take on this initiative on a town-wide basis. So give yourselves a round of applause, please. This is important. Celebrate this. You are leading the way in addressing a challenge that impacts all of us. And I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about loneliness, and I'm going to talk about social disconnectedness. They're a little different, but they lead to the same problems. And then I'm going to talk about what you all already know, but I'm going to dive deeper into the power of social connection. All right, so we know that loneliness is not simply a feeling, right? We know this inherently. The issue is more than 60% of us are feeling this way, and it's leading to health impacts. So there are detrimental mental and physical health impacts to loneliness and social disconnectedness. Can you all hear me okay? I'm moving this closer. Okay, better. So people, I just want to start by what it does to us physically, all of us. People who are lonely have disrupted sleep patterns. So we don't sleep as well. It just starts there. We're feeling anxious and depressed, and we don't sleep as well. It causes increased inflammation in our bodies. I don't know if anyone's thought about it that way before, but this has been proven physiologically. Higher stress hormones, right, start to course throughout our body when we feel lonely. And it weakens our immune function, making us more susceptible to catching a cold or getting the flu or RSV or COVID or anything. And so when we are addressing loneliness, it's a preventative measure helping our physical health. It increases the risk of anxiety, it increases the risk of depression, of suicidal ideation, of substance use and abuse. And for older adults, I don't know if everyone is aware of the detrimental physical impacts. 30% higher probability of developing heart disease. 56% higher chance of having a stroke if you are a lonely older adult. And a 50%, so I'm going to say this again, a 50% higher probability of experiencing cognitive decline and developing some form of dementia. And so you take a step back and you say, okay, why are we doing this? We're doing this to help our residents. And truly, you will be making an impact on your residents through social connection because you'll be mitigating all of these risks. Back in 2023, our former U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, declared loneliness a public health crisis. Many of you are aware of this. He did this because he's a practicing physician. And as he was out over the past 30 years, before taking on the U.S. Surgeon General role, dealing with and working with patients, he saw the detrimental impacts of loneliness, and he understood that it is the root cause of so many other things. And it's not only older adults, right? We often think about older adults being more prone to loneliness due to sometimes their isolation. But it's our young people. It is young students. It is tweens, it is teens, it is young adults. As a matter of fact, the loneliest population right now are our young adults age 18 to 22. And so we know that there's research here in Enfield certainly, and it mirrors the research around the state, that our youth are feeling disconnected. And even when they are on social media, or perhaps, dare I say, because they are on social media, they are feeling unseen, right? So Cam got up and talked about how important it was to maintain connections. He was missing connections with his soccer team friends. And kudos to you, Cam, for taking the initiative and being intentional about figuring out how to foster those connections, right? And this is what is so important. If all of us do this, and if all of us can follow what Cam did, we are going to be better off ourselves, and we're going to help those around us improve their social connectivity. So flipping the script, right? This is where it's really important, and this is what I was getting at when I was referencing what Cam shared. Harvard did a study. They started this study 80 years ago. They followed young men who were working in the shipyards in Boston and Harvard students. They enrolled them into a long-term lifetime study and have followed them throughout their entire lives. Some of them are still living. Each year, they interviewed them. Each year, all of these men, as they were aging, went through physical exams. And they then brought on the spouses of all of these gentlemen and started interviewing them. And after 80 years, what they found is the most powerful way to live happily and to live healthy and to age well is through our relationships. And when we have positive relationships for ourselves, with our family, with our friends, with our neighbors, we are more likely to live a longer, happier, healthier life. Indeed, social connection is the foundation of our health. I hope some of you recognize this picture, recognize where this was taken. I'm hoping. What I want to do now is talk about something other than health. Because so often when people talk about loneliness and disconnection, they talk about the detrimental health impacts, but it's much broader than that. There are economic and community impacts to loneliness and disconnection. Disconnected communities have higher rates of unemployment. Disconnected communities have higher rates of substance use and substance abuse. They have higher rates of gun violence. They have higher rates of domestic violence. And so it may not come to mind when you're thinking about loneliness and disconnection, but all of these are downstream impacts of lonely individuals. On the other hand, there's research from Harvard and an organization called More in Common, US, that shows that people that have diverse friendships, they get to meet people who are different from them as they are growing up. Across class, across background, they are significantly more likely to achieve upward mobility in their lives. So just thinking about the economic impact of what that can be. The bottom line is that social capital matters. And I want you to all be thinking about that. Social capital matters. Connected communities with strong social ties have more natural mentoring relationships. Just think about that. When you have strong social ties with your neighbors and friends, you're more likely to develop this organic mentoring relationship, not through a formal program, but it just happens authentically and naturally, where our youngest residents become mentored and get mentored by some of our older residents, can help them throughout their entire life, can help them with job opportunities. And this is what happens with connected communities. We also know that connected communities have higher rates of volunteerism, right? People who feel connected to their community want to help their community, right? And so volunteerism is very high with connected communities. And civic engagement is also. Businesses thrive in connected communities, and there's two reasons for this. The first is for those businesses like restaurants and coffee shops that are third places, the businesses that offer spaces for people to connect, right? Residents will want to go out, they connect in those spaces, and they are purchasing coffee and food and just to sit down and enjoy some company with some friends, and it's helping those businesses. But the other important thing is that when you have socially connected communities, people, residents living in town want to support the businesses that are within their town. They want to support the small businesses because they recognize that those small businesses are part of the fabric of our community. And so I'm just going to pause because I want you to take that all in. So not only does addressing loneliness and disconnection have a positive health impact for residents of all ages, it's actually a way of fostering community, and it's an economic strategy for Enfield. I brought these trends with me today. I wanted to share them with you because we so often think about, when we think about addressing loneliness, our minds automatically go to older adults who are not the loneliest population. I already shared the loneliest group is our young adults. But sometimes people are thinking about young adults. But what is really important is for everyone. I'm going to say in between, right? So each of us here today have experiences with loneliness, right? We heard some brave folks share some of those. We know that new moms experience loneliness at extraordinarily high rates. We know that people who are moving to a new town and don't know anyone experience loneliness. We know that people, when they retire, experience loneliness because they're leaving their colleagues behind. But when we're thinking about day-to-day adults, the trends are pretty disturbing. And these are trends that are national, and they're trends here in Connecticut. The share of adults that have 3 or fewer friends has doubled since 1990. So over the past 30 years, nearly half of us have only 1, 2, or 3 friends. That was 25% of us in 1990, now it's half of us. The other troubling trend is, regardless of the number of friends you have, the amount of time that we're spending with friends has been cut in half from approximately 6.5 hours a week in 2014 down to about under 3 hours a week in 2021. Now, when I saw this statistic, I said, well, that's just a function of the pandemic, right? So I dug deeper because the data was from 2021. But what's happened is that those numbers have not increased since 2021. So we're still at less than 3 hours a week that we're spending socially connecting with our friends. This year, the World Health Organization declared social connection a global health priority and is encouraging and urging communities to foster social infrastructure. So what you all are doing, what the Social Connection campaign in Enfield is doing, is fostering this, fostering social infrastructure, and you're saying that social connection matters. You're saying that belonging matters. And this is really, really powerful. There's good news. So the desire for connection is actually very strong. People want to connect. They're looking for opportunities to connect. In 2023 and 2024, More in Common, that organization I mentioned earlier, sat down and interviewed 6,000 Americans across the United States. And what they found is that 66% of them say that they believe they can learn something valuable from someone who has different beliefs than they do. So think about where we are today, right? Think about what's happening across the United States. Think about the environment we're living in today. If you turn on the news, you might think, well, gee, we're in a place where there's significant disconnection. But what I would tell you is people want to connect. The reality is individuals want to connect. I'm sure all of you here today are looking for opportunities to connect. In that study, 70% of the people that were interviewed said, we really are striving to find connection with people who are different from us, and we feel a responsibility to do so. The problem, though, 26% of the people said, we don't have any opportunities to do this. There's nothing happening locally in my community where I can sit down and have an authentic conversation and build an authentic friendship with someone different from me. And so this is what Enfield Together Coalition's Social Connection Campaign is all about, right? Fundamentally, it's about offering those spaces and places and opportunities to give people the experience for them to connect, whether it be with friends or whether it would be with new friends who may be a little different than them. I share this, and in the middle is the more we get together, the happier we'll be. This is our slogan. This is For All Ages slogan. This is what I think this connection campaign is all about. Some of you may have heard this on Sesame Street or on Barney. If you were a Girl Scout, you may recognize this song, but what I would tell you is back in the late 1800s, a poet in the United Kingdom wrote a poem. He was asked to do this for a children's charity. And back in the late 1800s, the organizers of the charity said the #1 goal that we have for the children in this charity is social connection. So think about that. Think about where we are in 2025. And it was the same issue that people were thinking about back in the late 1800s. And so this is just something fun that I hope you take away and that you remember. I want to say that this campaign is not simply a nice idea. As Gary and I are out throughout the state, we sometimes talk to people who say, well, that's nice. That's nice, Deb, but I have real problems that I need to address. And what I would tell you is this is not only nice, this is essential, right? If we can peel back the onion and think about the root cause of so many of the problems that we have for ourselves with loneliness and within our communities with social disconnectedness, it all gets back to addressing this, right? And if we can go upstream and think about this and address it the way that you all are going to be doing over the upcoming year, you're going to make change that will have ripple effects that are going to last for decades here in this town, right? And so it's my hope that you are a shining star, that Gary and I will be back a year from now and we'll be able to hold you up and to say to the rest of the state and hopefully the rest of the country, look at what Enfield, Connecticut is doing. It can happen. It is happening. And look at how they're doing it. And look at the impact and look at the results. We know that when people are socially connected and when communities are connected, residents feel supported, right? We all want to feel that we belong. This will happen. This is going to grow out of this initiative that residents are going to feel supported across every age group, starting with our youngest residents to our oldest residents. I don't know the age of the oldest resident in Enfield, but let's say up to age 120. That ought to cover it, right? Maybe? For the older adults in town and for others who are socially isolated, right? So isolation is different from loneliness. Loneliness is a feeling. Isolation is objective. You can actually see that someone is isolated. Maybe they are lacking transportation, or for health reasons they are isolated. If you can find a way through this social connection campaign to interact or to offer a connection to people who are isolated, then you're going to give them a sense of belonging too. Families are going to strengthen, right? When you are able to offer opportunities for families to gather and to create memories together locally within the community, those families are going to grow stronger together. Neighborhoods will become safer as residents want to look out for one another. I know that this is already a wonderful part of living in Enfield. I was an Enfield resident for a number of years, and I experienced this myself, so I know this, but it can always grow deeper. It can always strengthen. I believe that Enfield's resilience is going to improve. I think someone mentioned resilience earlier on. Cindy, maybe it was you. Certainly, Enfield's resilience as a community will strengthen and will deepen. And what you are doing is taking the science of connection and turning it into local action that's making a positive impact. And you all should be very proud of what you're doing together. So I know that there's a number of upcoming initiatives that will be rolled out over the coming year. There's going to be community activities for residents to be able to take advantage of and come together with. I really hope that what happens is that other neighborhoods, right, local neighborhoods, are able to do things like the potluck dinner. Someone mentioned who had a dinner in their neighborhood? Who was up here early? Thank you, block party. Thank you for that. Apologies. Joanna, right? So imagine what it would be like if every neighborhood does a block party. Imagine what it's like if every neighborhood is able to offer movies in the backyard during the summertime, right, where neighbors are gathering. Think about the power of that. It's my hope that this is what happens through this social connection campaign. Social health, just like mental health and just like physical health, needs to be nurtured. It requires attention and it requires intention. It requires this intentionality, to be intentional about it and think about it on a daily basis. And that's exactly what you are doing here today. That's exactly it. You're being intentional about social connection. So I'm going to close now before we transition into an exercise that Gary and I are going to co-lead. But I invite you to think about what's one thing that you can do leaving here today that will offer connection to one of your neighbors or one of your colleagues. Right? Gary and I will be talking about your own connection, but I want you to think about what you can do to connect with others and give them the gift of connection. Because connection doesn't begin with policies, it doesn't begin with programs, it begins with each of us, right? And if we are all intentional, right? You take the 60 people that are in this room of being intentional about fostering social connection, and each of you touch 10 people in the next week, right? That ripple effect is going to be really, really powerful. So thank you for having me this morning. Gary and I, like I said, we're going to transition into an activity that's going to get you all thinking. It's going to encourage you to pause and reflect, and you're going to leave here with a customized social connection action plan for yourselves, which is really cool. So we just want to transition directly into it, Cindy? Awesome. Gary, you want to come up?
Sure.
All right. All right, so you have in front of you this card. It's the Made for You Connection Challenge. All right? So what we know for sure, I wish I could walk around. Maybe I can take this and walk around. Can I do that? So what we know is that social connection is not a one-size-fits-all. Social connection is personal. Each of us strive to have different levels of connection in our lives. And so this challenge is aimed at developing a customized social connection plan. So there's 4 steps, right? On the left-hand side, there are 4 challenges. The first challenge is for you to think about how many times in the last week you connected with family or friends. For me, I connected with my mom over a phone call. I connected with my brother, but it was only via text. And I connected with my daughter earlier this week with a FaceTime. So that I had 3 connections. How many do I strive to have, though? And this is the important number to think about for yourselves. What do you strive to have as far as the number of connections in your week with family or friends? And I want you to write that number down. Maybe the number's 3, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10. Whatever it is, write that number down. And that is your first challenge. So the challenge when you leave here today is to then over the next week make sure that you make those number of connections in your life. Remember, this is personal. So each of you are going to have a different number, and that's okay. That's okay. All right. The second challenge is, how are you going to connect? So think about those activities that you perhaps haven't done recently that enable you to connect. Maybe you have a really good friend that you haven't had lunch with in 6 months because you're busy, and he or she is busy, and you keep putting it off. Well, if lunch with Joe is important to you, then write down lunch with Joe, right? If that's one of the activities that you think is important for you to connect. If going for a walk with your friend Sally is important to you, and gee, you used to do it on a weekly basis and now it's been a while, I want you to write that down. So pick 2 things for yourself. You have to be intentional about this, and you have to pause and reflect. But what are the 2 things that you are going to do for yourself to connect? That's going to help you improve your social connectivity. And oh, by the way, because it involves at least 2 people, you're going to improve another person's social connectivity also.
Sure.
You're
I'm just gonna do it.
All right.
Because my family tells me I'm way too loud. So this is where it pays off. Okay, so number 3, social media. We'll look around for a second because I see some smiles, maybe not so smiley. So here's my analogy to social media, right? Remember back in the 90s, early 90s, information superhighway, right, was the internet. So today's internet is social media, right? So that's like the virtual connection superhighway. The problem is they both had the same issue, right? One of the best things that's ever hit, but also perhaps a little bit of a detriment. So what challenge number 3 is, write down and think about how many hours a day you spend on social media. Right? Think about it. It's probably more than you think, but that's not necessarily all bad. But then think about how many hours should I spend on social media? So let's say you think you spend 4 hours, but you think you really should only spend 2. So write that down. A little reflection here. And if you're not sure, you can scroll left, I think, on your iPhone. It'll tell you how many hours you're in front of it. Right? I looked at it and I was like, oh, jeez. Right? So let's say you write down 4. Right? You think you do 4, you write down 2. I really should just do 2. Well, now you have 2 free hours. So think about what you could do with those 2 free hours. That's the challenge, right? Maybe you should exercise, take a walk, maybe just a little time by yourself. Or maybe more importantly, connect with somebody, like your neighbor. Right? Wave to your neighbor at the mailbox or whatever, right? So simple. How's that sound? That's pretty good. Challenge number 3. Okay, number 4. This one is dear to me. Think about someone who you haven't connected with in a long time, but you really enjoyed back then. I think of my college roommate, who I had a great time with, and I don't always talk with them. So think about that person or persons, and think about how you might connect with them in the coming week. Maybe it's a friend you had at an old job you had. Or how about somebody you grew up with? Right? Like a lot of us back when we were growing up, didn't you know almost everybody in your neighborhood? That's not quite the way it is today. So maybe think of those types of folks that you could reach out to and say, geez, I was thinking about you the other day back when we lived on Elm Street, and it was fun. So that's challenge number 4.
And Gary, let me just also add that for the folks that are in high school right now, you can be thinking about maybe someone that you used to go to school with that you haven't connected with in a year. Or someone that used to be on a team that you spent a lot of time with and you haven't seen in a year. So someone that you used to be friends with and that you want to reconnect with, write that person's name down. I will also add that it can be hard to reconnect. So if you have not reached out to your college roommate in 10 years, some random call may or may not, like it may be hard for you to make that call. What I will tell you is 90% of the time when someone takes the initiative to make that call, they get a warm reception. 90% of the time. All you need to do is say, hey, I've been thinking about you. You don't need to feel bad about having not connected with someone for 5 years. You say, you know what, I was thinking about you today, and I thought I would reach out and see how you're doing. That's all it takes. So those are the 4 challenges. On the right-hand side of that sheet of paper, that's what you will do in thinking about how when you actually do those challenges, write down how it made you feel. And the reason that this is so important, not just to do it, but to actually write down and reflect on how it made you feel, is because you're more likely to continue to do it in the future when you realize how powerful it is and taking simple steps. So, I know this may seem like a silly exercise, right? You're writing down these 4 things, but what it means is you're building that muscle of connection for yourself, and you also have a tool that you can share with other people. Others in your lives, whether they are socially connected or whether they maybe need some social connection. You can say, hey, look, I've got this challenge. It's really simple. I encourage you to try it. Here's what it is. So I hope that you all will do this. All right, so Cindy, now we want to move on to one final activity here. So fostering connection within our communities, as I said, it starts with all of us. It starts with each of you. And so For All Ages runs a program. It's called the Comfort and Joy Holiday Card Drive. It's a statewide initiative. This year, we are looking for 50 organizations to sign up to be a part of this. We're already at 25 as of this morning. You all have become number 26, the Enfield Together Coalition. And so these cards are created and then delivered to isolated older adults in assisted living and memory care facilities, and to veterans around the state of Connecticut, and patients at the Hospital for Special Care in New Britain, Connecticut. And I would also share that our governor is declaring, we believe, December 10th as Comfort and Joy Day in the state of Connecticut, which is the final collection date for these cards. So you all are going to have an opportunity to sit down and fill out a card. So the card actually has a cover already, so you don't even need to think about that. On your table, in the center of your tables, are guidelines for what to write inside. So we want to stay away from Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. We want to be a little more general because we don't know who these are going to be delivered to. And so you are going to take these cards, you'll turn them in at the end, and guess what? These cards are going to stay within your community to be delivered to isolated older adults here in Enfield this holiday season.
I'm just going to add, we actually have blank cards and stickers and stuff for people that are creative.
Okay, so if you didn't hear Cindy, some of the cards are blank cards. There are stickers. Gary and I brought some stickers. You can put a sticker on the front, and then you can decorate it and you can fill it out in the inside. So just to share a story while you all are doing this, last year I had the opportunity to deliver cards to residents at an assisted living facility. And one of the residents took the card that I handed her, tears started streaming down her face, and she held it to her chest and just mouthed the words, "Thank you," to me. What I heard from the director of that facility in July of this year is that she still had that card on her bedside table because it was a reminder to her that she was not forgotten. All right, so if I can have everyone's attention, please. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for listening to me this morning. Thanks for your willingness to undertake your own social connection plan. And thanks for helping older adults in town. I would tell you we're not done yet, so don't leave. Okay? We're not done yet. There's actually a closing. So Tessa is going to come up and she's going to talk for a little bit, okay? And share some information.
All right, thank you so much everyone for joining us today. I hope you really enjoyed your morning. ETC is really excited about where Enfield Connects campaign or how it will unfold throughout the next year. I encourage you all to stay connected, and you can do that by following us on our Facebook page and Instagram page. If you have not yet, there's a raffle over by the connection map. So if you are not already following us, give us a follow, then you'll be entered into the raffle. You will also see we have a brand new page on our website all about Enfield Connects, and it has gone live today. That's where we will be sharing different opportunities for you to get connected here in Enfield. We'll also be featuring the Humans of Enfield section on the website where we'll be featuring different residents. While you're there, you can click over to our home page as well. And that's where you can be able to sign up for the e-newsletter. Every month, we will be sending out information not only on social connection, but mental health and substance misuse prevention and lots of other resources. If you have not done so yet, I encourage you to go over to our connection map and use your stickers. Tell us where you live, where you work, and where you gather. And then right next to it, feel free, help yourself to some fidgets, stickers, buttons, anything on that table you are welcome to grab. Again, thank you so much for coming, and I'd like to bring up our tri-chairs. On your tables, there's also a one-pager that we have developed. That one-pager will provide you with the language to go out into the community and tell more people about Enfield Connects. So highly encourage you each to grab one of those and take it with you today. So I will invite our tri-chairs up.
Where you were. Hi, everyone. This is Erin, I'm Kelly, and this is Charlotte. We just want to thank you all for coming, for sharing, for considering how you can make a difference in everyone's life here and lives of others in your neighborhoods. stay connected to us, reach out if you have any ideas or any needs, and most important, connect with others.
Yeah, I was just gonna say a couple things. So thanks for spending a perfect fall Friday morning with us. I feel really grateful to look out here and to know at least half of you that are sitting here, if not more. And that wouldn't be possible unless I stepped out of my comfort zone all those years ago when I went to play groups with my kiddos and joined PTO. And I made lasting connections then. And all these years later, I get to give back and help my community in so many ways. So all I ask of you today is to do two things. Take what you've experienced here today back to your circle of friends, acquaintances, coworkers, and spread the message of connection and engagement. And two, like I remind my scouts of their do a good turn daily motto, I ask that you all do the same. It can be as simple as saying hi, waving to a neighbor, holding the door, asking someone how they are that you don't know. Just spread kindness. So thank you again for coming out today, and I hope to see you all around.
And I get to be the very last one, and I looked at Kelly and I said, can I please say a couple of things? This has got me really charged up. I'm the new guy on the committee, and I was asked to join. I'm Aaron Markovich, Director of Economic Development for the town of Enfield. And why am I there? Oh, well, if you listen to all of the conversation, everything that was being discussed today had a relevance to the physical environment of our community. If we don't have places to meet, the neighborhoods, the soccer fields, the playgrounds, our environment has a huge impact on us, and so my job in many ways is to make those connections that humans have and bring it in and make sure the physical environment is meeting that. And then the second part of this is that I have my own teenagers, and the warning bells are going off. They have been sounding for a while. And I offer you a reading assignment if you've not heard of it yet, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. There was a recent Star Talk podcast that they talked about that. I really encourage you to take a read or listen in on anything he's got to say, because the impact on our youth and what social media and what our environment has created to create this loneliness epidemic at that level is really, really, really important, and it will impact all of us for a very long time. So I'm excited to start in on a project like this and make the impact, start here in Enfield, blossom outward. We have people working on this all over the place, and the more we can do with it, the better. So again, thank you all for being here. It's really been very exciting.
Do you want me to talk about it?
Yep.
Did I-
Remember I said at the beginning we're going to equip you? So here's another little tool that Kelly's going to describe that's on the table.
The green cards are this or that. So just for little conversation starters, casual or formal, really simple, just a little conversation starter. The blue ones are questions. When are you the most happy? They're just quick, conversation starters for you to just chat about. I just want everyone to remember, you all have the power to make a difference in someone's life. So, power's in you. Thank you.